Martin? Martin, you going to shut down the beaches on your own authority?
Well, what other authority do I need?
Technically, you need a civic ordinance or a resolution by a board of selectmen.
That's just going by the book. We're really a little anxious that you're rushing into something serious here. It's your first summer, you know.
Something serious, you say? Like a shark attack, maybe? A dead woman from our beaches? Oh, I don't know. What could possibly be? Dun-dun. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Cinema Psych podcast where psychology meets film. I am your host, as always, Dr. Alex Swan, and we are celebrating a 50th anniversary for the film we're talking about today, The Dun-Dun. As you may have heard in the little stinger, the cold open, the little the soupçon of the film. We're talking Jaws, 1975 Steven Spielberg classic. This is one of my favorite movies, and we have on one of my favorite people to talk about it. I am such a fan of this movie. The way that Steven Spielberg did everything, the performances, the psych in this movie is phenomenal. Now, there are sequels to this movie, but we're not gonna talk about any of those sequels. I don't know. We're not gonna do that at all. Nope. Jaws exists all by itself. And the original Bruce is the only Bruce in my heart. So yeah, this is the 50th anniversary of the release of this film. It opened up on June 22nd, 1975. So this episode here, the one that you're listening to now, is the true 50th anniversary engagement. This is what you want to listen to when you think to yourself, what movies are celebrating their 50th anniversaries? Well, Jaws. Let's get the psych on them, surely. Okay. Oh, June 20th. Excuse me. June 20th, 1975. And the box office went through the 22nd. There we go. June 20th. So we just missed the actual 50th anniversary by about 10 days as you're listening to this, as this episode came out, is published. All right, enough about that. 50th anniversary. We've got Steven Spielberg directing. We've got Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb as credited writers. The film was based on the novel by Peter Benchley. So you can imagine there that the part of the writing credit is given to him, but he also contributed to the screenplay as well with Carl Gottlieb. The film stars Roy Scheider as Police Chief Martin Brody. He gets called Martin and Brody by several people in the movie, different people here and there. Robert Shaw plays Quint, the hardened sea captain, who has an untimely death. Might be because of his hubris associated toward Bruce. A little bit of a mini Ahab Moby Dick reference, I'd imagine. Richard Dreyfuss plays an oceanographer named Matt Hooper, who is seemingly a expert on sharks, or at least some sort of knowledge regarding the sharks in the area and whether there should be a great white in, the northern Atlantic off the coast of the United States. Lorraine Gary plays Martin Brody's wife, Ellen Brody. Murray Hamilton plays the important character that is going to get talked about a lot in this episode, at least from my perspective, Mayor Larry Vaughn. Don't like Mayor Vaughn. He is, Murray Hamilton played him phenomenally, but definitely not. And then a few other people's here and there. Peter Benchley cameos as an interviewer in the movie, and I think that's amazing since he wrote the book about a killer shark. Now, I might be referring to the shark by the name of Bruce throughout this episode because Bruce was the name given to the real animatronic shark that they created for this. There's a great black and white photograph. You could go look at a ton of photographs from this shoot of the orca, the Quint's boat, and then the Bruce with Steven Spielberg just laying in his mouth. Oh, so amazing. Bruce, so named for this, pneumatically powered full-size prop shark. And, there were a bunch of them used for different shots and different scenes. One obviously had to get blown up for sure, of course. So named Bruce because of Steven Spielberg's lawyer, Bruce Raymer, which I think is hilarious. So about 5 years ago, one of the replica mechanical shark Bruces, I love Bruce. Bruce is just an amazing feat of filmmaking, but in any case, and prop design and animatronics and stuff. Anyways, Bruce, this replica that now lives at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles, used to be at Universal Studios Hollywood for 15 years, and then went to a junkyard for another 25 years until the owner found it and donated it to the museum in 2016, where he has been since 2020. Isn't that amazing? I love that. Oh, good on Bruce. He's just a shark trying to get some food. Anyways, I think that's enough introduction. Let's jump right into the movie. One of my favorites with one of my favorite people. My guest host today is Dr. Jordan Wagge. She's a returning guest host. You can see on the main website pretty much a ton of episodes that she's been on, but you can just find her on the website and it'd be great. But in any case, she's back. If you're not familiar with who Dr. Jordan Wagge is, where have you been? But okay, she is professor and chair of psychology at Avila University in Kansas City, Missouri. And as I said in the intro, she's one of my favorite people. Jordan, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you. I didn't get to hear the intro. I'll have to wait and listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
You are Jordan.
Hi. Yeah. You pronounced all the things right. Thank you.
I did.
Good friends. Yeah. Good friends.
Well, Jordan, you were last on some point in the past. I actually did not look at the last time you were on the show.
Last summer, Groundhog Day.
Was it? Did we do Groundhog Day last summer?
Yeah, we did it. We were together in person.
Oh, that's
Remember?
right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is the 99th episode, and I've done so many of them, and they all bleed together. It's been 6 years, and I still remember recording those first handful of episodes. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that is wild.
It feels like yesterday. It's probably because I'm sitting in the same exact spot as I have been for a lot of these.
Physically and emotionally.
What?
Physically and emotionally.
Physically and emotionally sitting in the same spot. Before we jump into the movie, I wanted to ask how things have been going, what you've been up to in this last year. Episode 99, 50th anniversary of Jaws. We'll get there. But what you been up to in this past year?
I've really been just celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jaws all year long. That's been, really the constant refrain of my day is just dur.
As you move through, as you move through the hallway.
Yep. There are sharks in these waters. I feel like I've been reflecting on the past year or two a lot lately. And I think it's because I just feel my entire life has been swallowed. You know this. We've talked about this as friends. But
yeah.
I will say that I am glad I am department chair. I think it's gone really well.
Okay.
But it has kind of eaten my life up a little bit and kind of like eaten a lot of the reserves that I have for peopling.
Yep.
And then, I hold an NSF grant at a small institution, and that's been really kind of a wild trip. Like, I am definitely not one of the people who has been harmed the most by the Trump administration, but like, so I feel kind of odd, saying, I mean, it's been like a mild inconvenience at worst for me.
Yeah, I hear that.
I still have the grant. Yeah. But it has been like, don't spend any grant money, do spend grant money. There's just been a lot of chaos kind of around that. And, but besides that, life is pretty good. I mean, I get to wake up in the morning and I enjoy 95% of how I spend my day. I've got great friends, as you know.
Yeah, me included.
I'm learning a lot about the geography of the world. Yeah, well, yeah, pretty good. A lot of plants. I have a lot of plants.
Yeah, I was just going to mention how I can see this background. Well, you were here, like you said, last year to record Groundhog Day, but the last time we recorded an episode where you were somewhere else, you did not have nearly as many plants as you do now. And it looks very lovely. You've got a lot of different lights going on, too, for different growth reasons, I would imagine.
Yes,
like there's a purple light.
I think I have one of my students in my online class asked me how many plants I have in my office, and I counted 42. And a lot of them are teeny tiny, and I'm like propagating them. And then I think I have 12 just full spectrum grow lights. I have one. This is a podcast. People won't be able to see it, but I have one like probably 2 foot by 6 foot north facing window, not the best light in the world. And so I have a bunch of like extra tiny little grow lights that I've just put up on top of my plants.
Very nice.
You don't want me to start talking about this.
Okay. Then let's pivot.
Plants in Jaws.
Let's pivot to the water, right? And
there was not a single plant in that movie.
And people's thalassophobia. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. But anyways, that's the fear of
what is that?
Deep ocean water.
Oh, that's specific.
And there's a subreddit devoted to that, and it's like, honestly, sweaty palms. If you're not a fan of deep ocean water, you're like, oh man.
Do you have that?
Only if I go out into the ocean. I can handle like watching deep water, but like if I'm out in the middle of the ocean, yeah, I'm gonna be like sweaty palms. It's because I don't know what's beneath me, right? It's a bunch of water, sure. But what else? Is Bruce Bruce gonna come and get me? I don't want that.
You can't be scared of anyone named Bruce. Is this not true though? Like when you're standing on the ground, like you have no idea what's beneath you on the ground?
Yes, but it's solid. I don't think I'm too worried about a great white shark coming up and eating the boat. You see what he does to the orca.
Yeah.
I think I'll have quite a bit of lead time if something's coming up through a solid surface. Do you know what I mean? One of like my favorite movies in the 1990s was Tremors. Okay, well,
and I think it's probably like not that that's going to happen in real life.
There's a difference. Great white sharks are real. The things in Tremors, probably not.
So you're a non-believer then. That's fine.
Yeah, I suppose I am, unless you're a hollow Earth believer, right? Flat / hollow Earth.
I am a carnivorous giant earthworm believer.
Yeah. Okay. Earthworm is the Earth is the worm named Jim.
Its name's Juice.
I didn't expect an OJ reference, but okay.
It was a Bruce reference. Like what rhymes with Bruce? Like juice? I don't know.
Oh gosh. Okay. Listener, you understand why this is recording is with Jordan is one of my favorite things to do. All right.
We have 2 hours booked on our calendar.
Exactly. And that's how long this episode is going to be. No. Just us riffing for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Riffing for 2 hours. Sometimes talking about the movie, but mostly just riffing.
Great white, Larry. A big one. And any shark expert in the world will tell you it's a killer. It's a man-eater.
Look, the situation is that apparently a great white shark has staked a claim in the waters off Amity Island. And he is going to continue to feed here as long as there is food in the water.
And there's no limit to what he's going to do. I mean, we've already had 3 incidents. 2 people killed inside of a week, and it's going to happen again. It happened before. The Jersey Beach.
1916, there were 5
people chewed up in the surf.
In 1 week.
Tell them about the swimmers.
A shark is attracted to the exact kind of splashing and activity that occurs whenever human beings go in swimming. You cannot avoid it.
If you open the beaches on the 4th of July, it's like ringing the dinner bell, for Christ's
Look,
sake.
Mr. Vaughn, I pulled a tooth the size of a shot glass out of the wrecked hull of a boat out there, and it was the tooth of a great white.
It was Ben Gardner's boat. It was all chewed up. I helped tow it in. You should have seen him.
Where is that tooth? Did you see it, Brody?
No, I didn't see it. He dropped it.
I had an accident.
On the way in.
And what did you say the name of this shark is?
It's a Carcharodon carcharius. It's a great white.
But you don't have the tooth. Look, we depend on the summer people here for our very lives.
You are not going
And
to
if
have
you
a summer
close those
unless you
beaches,
deal
we're
with this
finished.
problem.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark. I mean, we're going to have to tell the Coast Guard.
Mr.
We're
Vaughn,
going to have to get
contact
shark
the
repellent.
shark
We're going to have to put
research
extra
panel.
deputies on because
You
every
have to
nut in
ring
the
this
world is going to
entire
come in here.
harbor.
We can't
I don't
spend
think
money
either
on
one of you are familiar with our problems.
I think that I am familiar with the fact that you are going to ignore this particular problem until it swims up and bites you on the ass. Now, wait a second.
Chief.
There are 2 ways to deal with this problem. You're
Chief.
either going to kill this animal or you're going to cut off its food supply.
Larry, we have to close the beaches.
Brody, sick vandalism. That is a deliberate mutilation of a public service message. Now, I want those little paint-happy bastards caught and hung up by their Buster Browns.
That's it. Goodbye. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch. I'm going to see you later.
Oh, no, please don't do this.
He's not. Mr. Vaughn, what we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine. It's really a miracle of evolution. All this machine does is swim and eat and make little sharks. And that's all.
Okay, so Jaws. Was this your first
Yes.
time seeing it?
It was.
It was. And you said you were going to try to watch the... sorry, not watch the... you said you were going to try to read the book
book first, yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah.
Did you
We've talked
succeed?
about this. Okay. So no, I did not succeed.
Didn't get a chance. Okay.
I think I've shared this with you. Growing up, my mom had this rule where if we were going to go, if she was going to take me to the movies to see a film, it was like from ages, 10 to, 14 or whatever. She wanted me to read the book first.
Okay. Fair.
So, and sometimes that works out well. Like Jurassic Park, good choice.
Yeah.
But like when I really wanted to see The Bodyguard, and like, God bless it, there was just a horrible, I think the novel was an adaptation of the movie. Somebody's going to Google that, but I had to read The Bodyguard
Oh, gosh.
before I saw
That
the
sounds...
movie. And I'm like,
that sounds disgusting.
this is not an intellectual exercise,
No.
seeing the body. Actually, the book was really good. So-
Okay. Fair enough.
So
Fair
I
enough.
feel like there's this compulsion I have to I really always I want to read the book before I see the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran out of time. I even downloaded the audiobook from the library app.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So will you attempt to read it as a comparison?
Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking about this. One of the few times I read a book after I saw the movie was with The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually a really neat experience. That ended up being one of my favorite books that I've ever read. I just think it's just a tremendous and brilliant book. And it's a really good movie too.
I think they have their different, The Shining, different reasons for being good, because famously Stanley Kubrick changed a ton of stuff from Stephen King's novel. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the book when you get around to it. But now we're going to focus on the movie. So it was your first time seeing the film in its entirety. Before I hear about what you thought of the movie, what did you know about Jaws before coming into this, as the movie is older than both of us?
Probably the same stuff that most people my age know. It's, it's about sharks. It's about, you know, I didn't know it was 4th of July, but I knew it was like a summer movie.
Mhm.
I knew it was like, you know, dudes on the ocean trying to kill sharks. I had a Nintendo Entertainment System growing up, as
Excellent.
many people, not a Super Nintendo,
Oh,
a
okay.
Nintendo.
Well.
And one of the video games for this, there was a Jaws video game,
Yes,
and like
there was.
thousands of hours of my life went into this. There was a point in my life where all I could think about was like Dr. Mario and Jaws, the video game. And very rich internal world here.
Yeah.
But the video game doesn't really, like, looking back on it, it doesn't really give you, it's not like a faithful adaptation.
No, it's not. I mean, we're talking about the Nintendo, the first Nintendo. And 2, we're talking about how, you know, it was fairly removed about 10 years or so after the movie came out, right? So I get it, but you at least had to go in and what's the point of the game, to kill sharks?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
It seems like that was, I don't know that I ever beat it.
I feel like somebody went to Nintendo and was like, listen, there was this movie a while back called Jaws. I've got this idea. How about we just have a game where you try to harpoon sharks and kill them?
Yeah.
And then we'll slap Jaws on it and we'll sell.
Yeah. There were pieces that I think were adapted, but yeah, and it worked out well for them. I mean, I know when I talk about older video games with people, like, this is the one that other people have experience of playing quite a bit.
Yeah.
But like,
I've seen it.
Man, I love that game.
Yeah. I never played it myself, but I've seen it being played by others on an SNES.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, did you also know about the music, John Williams score? You know, the classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I've been meaning to watch Jaws for years, and I got really, there's another podcast I really like. That's I forget what it's called, but it's I won't advertise other podcasts on your podcast, but it's a podcast about, you're wrong about is actually what I'm thinking of, and I think the person who hosts that has talked about Jaws on there before, or on her, she has another movie podcast that she does, and has talked about like rewatching it every year as like a start of summer movie. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll try to do that one of these coming years to like set the vibes for the summer.
Yeah. Okay.
So this was going to be the year we, my spouse and I, we were supposed to go to see the symphony here. We'll do this thing where it plays the score of the music behind the movie. So we went to see
live
Jurassic Park with our kids. Yeah. We went to see that live.
Yeah.
That was really cool. It was a neat experience. So we were going to do that with Jaws, but we ended up not going because we are people who love to not go to things as much as we can. I have no regrets, right?
Okay, fair enough. You know,
fine.
That's fine. I think the intro would have been cool to see, but if you walked out of the rest of the show, I think you wouldn't have been missing much, because the first part is the best part, right? The credits, and then up to Chrissy's ultimate death.
I don't know. I'm gonna so because I have this lens, like I'm approaching this whole, when I watch this movie, I'm approaching the whole experience with like, what is the music doing? Like, what would this have been like to see at the symphony? And like, when they're chasing the shark around, it switches from like this, like the music. What I liked about it is the music told me what experience to have, or told me like what experience the movie expected me to have.
Yeah, John Williams is really great at that.
So
really
good.
Great.
And it switched from like this foreboding music to like, as they're following the shark, like it's this like jaunty, like going on an adventure type of music. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with like this? It was so discordant for me, because I'm like, is that the experience that we're supposed to be thinking these guys are having on this boat? Like, I
just sit
like,
right back and you hear a tale of a fateful trip, right? Yes,
it was jaunty.
It was, and then they get into singing sea shanties drunk.
Oh yeah.
Before Bruce is like, guys, I can hear you sing, and you really need to stop.
Yeah,
because they're like singing, and then it's thump, thump, and Bruce is saying, "Oh my God, this is awful. I'm gonna kill Quint," and he does.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think that if Bruce hadn't shown up, they all would have started making out.
I think so too. They were getting into it. They had a lot to
wrapping
drink,
legs around each other.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they were, Quint was on something, that's for sure. He was on a quest.
Yeah.
We'll get more into that. So what did you think about the movie? Performances, all that jazz.
It was good. I watched it in 2 sittings, which, as you know, is not unusual for me. So I stopped about an hour in and then finished the rest later. I've always loved Richard Dreyfuss. I can't think of a single movie that he's been in besides Mr. Holland's Opus, but he's
What about
he's in,
Bob?
he's always great.
We were just talking
Right. Oh my God. Right. See? That's really funny. You called me out. He has such range.
He
and
does.
It was like kind of fun to like, he was kind of hot.
Yeah, in the 70s.
I know this is where I take the podcast. Yeah, this is where I always take the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I will never forget you letting me watch a movie that had Tony Danza wearing a V-neck sweater.
I let you watch it. You mean you watched it for purposes of research?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The movie she's referring to is 1997's remake of 12 Angry Men.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
Tony
Danza.
Satisfied Lady.
Yeah, Tony Danza was wearing a V-neck sweater in that because 1997, I don't know, height of Tony Danza's powers, and then he kind of fell off after that, I suppose.
Ugh, take it back.
No, I can't. Who do you think had the best performance out of the 3 main male characters? Brody, Quint, or Hooper?
I don't know. I don't feel like I'm a very good judge of this, but I'm going to say Brody.
Yes. Very good. I agree. You made the right choice.
Thank you.
You made the right choice.
I feel validated.
Yeah.
Wait, which one was he?
Well,
alphabetically. He was Richard Dreyfuss, right?
No, Brody is Roy Scheider.
Steve. Okay.
He's
No, he just stayed quiet.
He was good. His last
He's
line
on my list.
His last line,
I used to hate the water.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the last line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is good. I don't think he wrote it.
No, I think the writer of Jaws wrote it.
Okay, so Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
Hooper had to believably like blow a raspberry and go like this at somebody through, a little, what's a boat cockpit called? A boat pit? Window?
I have no idea. I only know the directions on a boat. I don't know what anything else is called except for like
you do not.
Below deck.
Which direction is starboard?
Right.
Port. And the other one's port.
Mm-hmm. Port is left. Stern or aft is the back, and then the bow is the front.
Wow. Nice.
Off the starboard bow. Iceberg, jet ahead. That's Titanic.
I'm pleased and happy to repeat the news that we have in fact caught and killed a large predator that supposedly injured some bathers. But as you see, it's a beautiful day, the beaches are open, and the people are having a wonderful time. Amity, as you know, means friendship.
Let's jump into the psych of this. Now, I've said that this movie is one of my favorites. Definitely top 10 up there. Steven Spielberg did a masterful job
I didn't know that.
Putting this together. You did not know that? No, it certainly is. It's not. I don't think it's top 5 for me, but it's definitely top 10.
I feel very privileged to have I feel like I just make you watch movies for these podcasts with me.
No, What About Bob was great.
It was great also, but there's Bridget Jones' Diary.
Yeah, I mean, I had seen it prior to us doing that episode though. So I mean,
yeah. All right.
It is what it is. I've enjoyed every movie that we've done. And no, you don't make me watch the bad ones. So Jaws is up there for sure. And there is a lot of psych in this movie. And I want to start by talking about my bread and butter, my research background, which is cognitive biases. And I mentioned in the intro, Mayor Larry Vaughn is perhaps the worst offender in this movie. Before we get into some of the biases, I want to get your take, clean take, Jordan, on Mayor Vaughn. Go.
I mean, I feel like he's a pretty typical motivated reasoning, like all of his reasoning is motivated.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
absolutely.
a person who's not thinking with data. He's like, this is how I feel, and I'm going to make all my decisions based on how I feel, and I feel like I want money.
Yeah, he wants the town to have money. We need the summer dollars. This
They
is
need
a
the summer dollars.
summer town. We need the dollars. Okay, well, I'll give you that. I will be charitable here. He's one of the worst people ever, but I will be He says that, and then he's like, I'll be charitable. Yeah. So I'll be charitable and say that though it seems like he's not using any data, I think he's actually using quite a bit. And he's relying on something that a lot of people don't rely on, which is base rates.
Yeah.
The prior probabilities that something is likely to occur. Okay, so let's talk about the shark attack as we jump into biases here, Jordan. So, do you know how common shark attacks are?
I'm very uncommon.
Very uncommon. How would you say they are more or less common than people getting thrown from horses?
Less common.
Less common than that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about lightning strikes?
Less. Well, lightning strikes hitting somebody or lightning strikes just in general?
Hitting someone. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good distinction. Sorry. I should have been more specific. Yeah. Lightning striking a person.
I don't know. I feel like you're trying to trick me.
I have no data in front of me. I am not trying to trick you at all. I'm trying to set up my point here.
Say they're both very rare. Less common.
Okay. Lightning strikes on people is less common than shark attacks, is what you're saying?
I would think shark attacks is less common.
Shark attacks is less common. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think more people die in a given calendar year from a shark attack or terrorism?
Where are we putting shark terrorism?
I mean, Bruce could have had an agenda. He certainly was stoking fear.
But we're not counting orca terrorism.
No, not counting orca terrorism because orcas are a natural enemy of sharks. So we could get a little, it could get a little confounded in there. You know what I mean?
I don't know the answer, so I'm procrastinating.
You can't procrastinate on a podcast that's post-production edited.
I would say more people would die by acts of terrorism.
Martin, you going to shut down the beaches on your own authority?
Well, what other authority do I need?
Technically, you need a civic ordinance or a resolution by a board of selectmen.
That's just going by the book. We're really a little anxious that you're rushing into something serious here. It's your first summer, you know.
What does that mean?
I'm only trying to say that Amity is a summer town. We need summer dollars. And if the people can't swim here, they'll be glad to swim at the beaches of Cape Cod, the Hamptons, Long Island.
That doesn't mean we have to serve them up a smorgasbord.
We never had that kind of trouble in these waters.
Well, what else could have done that to that girl?
Boat propeller?
Well, I think possibly, yes, a boating
That's
accident.
not what you told me over the phone.
I was wrong. We'll have to amend our reports.
And you'll stand by
I'll
that?
stand by you.
Martin, a summer girl goes swimming. Swims out a little far. She tires. Fishing boat comes along.
It's happened before.
I don't think you appreciate the gut reaction people have to these things.
Harry, I appreciate it. I'm just reacting to what I was told.
Martin, it's all psychological. You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
So here is where I'm being charitable with Mayor Vaughn, as you and you can disagree with me, Jordan, or listener, you can disagree with me here, but hold on. Let me tell you my reasoning. Okay, so there is a heuristic that is part of the whole cognitive bias spectrum, and it is called the availability heuristic. And it's the tendency for people to judge the likelihood of events based on how easily an example can come to mind. So more vivid, dramatic examples are thought to be more probable, right? Which is why people stopped flying for a hot minute after 9/11 because they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be on a terrorist plane and fly into another building, yada, 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 right? Or why people were not going to go flying, but still got in their car and drove long distances, even though there are more automobile accidents in a given year than there are plane accidents, right? Even the recent Reagan disaster over the Potomac, right, with the helicopter. So we've got Mayor Vaughn arguing with Chief Brody right after Chrissy's attack, which starts the film. And he's saying, I want to close the beaches down. And Mayor Vaughn says to him, well, you can't really do that because, first of all, you don't have the authority to do it. And second of all, you scream shark, there's going to be a panic. And shark attacks are rare. So let's at least investigate whether it is a shark attack. So at this time, the medical examiner had called it a shark attack, but after speaking to Vaughn, turned it into a fatal boat accident, right? Of getting caught in the turbine of the boat accident. And so there's this shifting of pieces around, and it's just like, well, shark attacks are rare. This seems new and noteworthy, novel. It's vivid. Shark attacks are pretty gross. Chrissy's body was mangled and chewed up. You can imagine that Vaughn didn't want to cause a panic without due process and due diligence in determining it. And he was trying to prevent the availability heuristic from taking over. Your thoughts on that argument?
No, and I think that's a really good point. And I'm like trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's in the situation. And it's like the book, I think the events that follow in the book, they're a good example of hindsight bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of like, if only we had closed the beaches, we should have known this all along that it was going to happen again, but they are pretty rare. Now, I don't know, what the odds are of like, if there's one shark attack on a beach, like will there be another?
Yeah.
Like, will that shark come back? I don't really know what those things are. Like, I do think that there was some motivated reasoning behind it.
Sure.
And
different biases for sure.
Yes.
Definitely creeping up for Vaughn. Yeah.
Yes. And so like, I don't think that he was doing this as being this really like objective thinker or somebody who's like a really good critical thinker. I think he was doing this because he wanted to keep the beaches open for the town to make more money. But that's a good point. I mean, it's a really good point. It is, well, I see it as like a risk benefit type thing too, of like, well, when there are lives in the balance, like this is where I am. I'm like, well, there are lives in the balance, especially as a parent, right? The risk of shutting down the beaches isn't that extreme, but also like there's always a risk when you get out there and enjoy your life. Like, yeah, that's
whose responsibility is the beach, and the water is where sharks are going to be. So there is a little bit of that. I do want to say that you do bring up a good point, and I want to add to my argument here and bring up sort of an overarching point to this bias discussion. Is none of these biases that, hindsight bias or availability heuristic, none of these biases operate in a vacuum, right? So while Brody is falling for his availability heuristic and trying to make, quick, rapid decisions, Vaughn is trying to take a step back, grab the whole picture. But as you're right, it is motivated for another set of reasons.
Yeah, I think he's weaponizing base rates
because of other biases, right? So
yeah.
he's incorporating base rates, but then he is showing more political bias. And I have it at this moment in time, may have been different from 1975, but through a presentist lens here, he is definitely a conservative Republican. And I think that's what you're supposed to gather from it, a more callous economic bent to his decision making. That's the motivated part of the reasoning, as you were saying. So, and it sort of matches some of the callousness and economic focus that we see in modern conservatives as well, where it is the almighty dollar above even the almighty God in some cases. And so you have that as a backdrop for his decision making, saying Amity is a summer town, but my response would be rapid fire. There ain't no town if everyone's getting eaten by sharks, right? Or even
100%. Yeah.
a newspaper or a news show getting wind of that, multiple people are dying of shark attacks, and it becomes this big thing.
Yeah, completely agree. But I sort of more the anti-close the beach crowd. I mean, it was like very obviously like they were threatening, right? Like they showed up on the ferry to kind of threaten Martin, tell him like, you're not, you're new here, like a gang of dudes. And that's why I said, like, I think they're weaponizing base rate.
Yeah. Confirmation bias, I think, is a good label.
And like when you, I guess, try to use, I mean, none of them were excellent critical thinkers, right? Through this whole thing. Nobody demonstrated excellent critical thinking, except for maybe, was it Brody was the chief, except for maybe his wife. She was just a real stand-up.
Yeah.
Through the whole movie. They're not engaging in thinking and reasoning to reach an unsure conclusion. They've reached the conclusion already.
Oh, yeah.
And they are engaging in specific reasoning designed to achieve that conclusion. And I think they may look a little bit more objective in doing so, but are really just as subjective as the other characters are.
Yeah. And as I said, confirmation bias, I think, really reflects that series of decision making of not just Mayor Vaughn, but people in his inner circle, or members of the council when they show up after the little boy. His name is Alex. Coincidental, I don't know, but when they go into that council room and that's where we all meet Quint. But confirmation bias is, I think, a good label, because if you're not familiar with it, it's the tendency to search for, interpret, or favor information that confirms, hence the name, one's pre-existing beliefs and worldview, and then at the same time discounting or ignoring contradictory evidence. So Mayor Vaughn thinks that it's not a shark attack, it's a boat attack, and who convinced whom is not in the movie, but the medical examiner could have been cajoled by Vaughn to say, are you sure it was a shark attack? Right? Throwing some doubt in there, and then that leads him to change, and then which causes Brody to have to go modify the death certificate or the coroner's report or whatever it was. And then, when these two fishermen find a smaller shark and they catch it, Mayor Vaughn's like, whoa, perfect. Threat is resolved. This is the shark, of course. Let's keep going with the beaches and everything like that. I feel like Mayor Vaughn, he gets the benefit of the doubt for the first part for availability, but as you say, he uses other biases to lead to different decision-making, opposite decision-making from Brody.
And see that thing cut open, and see that little Kettner boy spill out all over the dock.
Chief Brody?
Yes?
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous. But you let people go swimming anyway. You knew all those things. But still, my boy is dead now. And there's nothing you can do about it. My boy is dead. I wanted you to know that.
What other biases did you spot? Tell me more about hindsight bias.
So hindsight bias is this idea that you sort of knew something all along or should have known something all along.
Mhm.
And I mean, if this is a real life scenario, there very just easily might not have been a second shark attack. And then, nobody, and that probably would have been the more likely outcome.
Mhm.
And then nobody would have thought twice about it. But, in this case, there were more shark attacks. This Bruce kept coming back.
Mhm.
And,
He's a hungry boy.
because of that, right? So Alex's mother, attacked Brody, so he smacked him in the face, didn't attack him, smacked him in the face,
Yeah.
and kind of gave him a haranguing because he should have known, he should have closed the beaches.
Yeah.
Like we should have known all along if she would have known there was a shark attack, right? So in that case, it's like, well, you didn't give us the information, or I think she said you should have closed the beaches, but I don't think it was public knowledge that, right? Like I don't think it was out that there were shark attacks because they were concerned, they didn't want to lose their tourists.
It was hard to, especially after the first attack. It was definitely news when news was getting out there when the fishermen caught the smaller shark.
Yeah, right. Wait, is that where the David Axelrod line was in the movie that call New York and tell David Axelrod he owes me a favor? And I'm like, it turns out it's not the same David Axelrod that worked for the Obama administration, right? But right. I'm like, this led to me Googling, how old is David Axelrod? Maybe that's kind of the cool thing about the first half of the movie is that it's a very ambiguous kind of like there's a lot of, I think we tend to have a lot more confidence that we will have acted a certain way in a certain situation. And it's very clear in Jaws that there is a right way to act. Like you're going to a movie called Jaws, there's going to be another shark attack. The poster has a shark on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the very beginning, you're kind of hooked where you're like, okay, he's not closing the beaches. Like bad things are going to happen. The movie isn't just going to dissolve from here out. Like everybody had a great July 4th weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So you are already on board with Brody where you're like, yeah, like this is a problem. The people in the town aren't listening. And I think it leaves you, if anything, like more prone to hindsight, like, I don't know, more prone to hindsight bias. I don't know if that's the right word, but it leaves you more prone to like really resenting the people who could have done something earlier, but didn't.
Yeah.
Because we don't experience life that way. We don't experience life from the perspective of what the outcome is going to be, but that's how we experience certain genre of film. Like we know in rom-coms that people are going to end up together. We know in horror movies that people are going to die. Like we experience the events with that lens.
And I think it's useful that we do get that moment between Alex's mother and Brody because it represents an affirmation of Brody's initial thinking. Like he was like, where do we keep these signs? And his deputy's like, we don't have beach closed signs. And his initial thinking was close the beach. And he didn't because he was told not to, right? Because different authority / you need an ordinance and all of this other jazz, which I think is really ridiculous from just a town governing perspective. But be that as it may, like he was talked down from it, and we find out like this woman who suffers the tragedy, wearing all black, tells him, right? Classic hindsight bias example. Tells him you should have closed the beach because you knew. And again, that's just, we're like, oh, Brody was right. How are we going to go? What's the rest of this movie going to be like? And then we finally get the second half of the movie, which is 3 men, a boat, and a shark attack.
I feel like this could have gone a lot differently if these men had just gone to therapy.
I mean, I don't know. Cooper was a oceanographer, marine biologist, whatever, some ocean scientist. He probably thought it was great.
Yeah, he was really into his scars too. I mean, he was.
Dave, don't you worry about it, you. It won't be permanent. You want to see something permanent? Boom, boom, boom. Hey, who? You want to feel something permanent? Just put your hand underneath my cap. Just be a little lump. Knockanolan, St. Patty's Day, Boston.
I got that beat.
some moray eel. Bit right through my wetsuit. Well, nope, no, listen, I don't know about that, but I entered an arm wrestling contest in an Okie bar in San Francisco. You see this? Now I can't extend that. You know why? Got to the semifinal, celebrating my third wife's demise. Big Chinese fella, he pulled me right off. Look at that. It's a bull shark. It scraped me when I was taking samples. I got something for you. That's the thresher. You see that? Chief Thresher's tail.
Thresher?
It's a shark. You want a drink? Drink to your leg?
I'll drink to your leg.
Okay, so we drink our legs.
I got the creme de la creme. Right here. Hold on. Hey, see that?
You're wearing a sweater.
Right there. Mary Ellen Moffat. She broke my heart.
What's that one?
What?
That one there, on your arm.
Oh, well, it's a tattoo. I got that removed.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Mother. What is it?
Hooper, that's the USS Indianapolis.
So all of these guys had something to prove, right? This guy, Hooper, needed to show that he wasn't just some like liberal academic,
Ivory
right?
Tower
That he
guy,
was,
yeah.
Yeah, that he could get in a cage in the ocean, that he could, that he could hang with the people. And they should have had a bigger boat. Like, I mean, I'll forgive Brody because he has no idea what the hell is going on, right? Like he doesn't have any experience in this, so he's going to do what Quint and Hooper tell him to do. But Hooper and Quint, they both know they should have had a bigger boat, but they're both out to prove something.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Coast Guard should have been in there. The Coast Guard should have, like, they're in more people. I'm like annoyed at the events of Jaws.
Yeah, it's always struck me as odd that the Coast Guard was not involved in this sort of operation. It was just like, let's pay Quint here. He's telling us he can find this and kill this shark. We don't even know how big it is, but I mean, Hooper's saying it's really big, right? Expertise bias going on. Like, you guys need to trust me here. And then Quint's like, yeah, I could take it, but like the Coast Guard would absolutely should be a part of this.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. Like, the town doesn't want the Coast Guard there because that's going to, or the people who run the town, because that's going to make it, nobody's pushing for that because that's going to make it scary to the tourists who are there. They're not going to, if they see, this huge effort, right? Like, they're motivated to think that this problem can be solved by like a boat the size of the Orca.
Yeah. And again, $10,000.
And $10,000, yeah. And Hooper, Hooper really wants to hang, right? He wants to handle this problem himself. Like, and Quint really should have gone to therapy. He got a tattoo removed.
He got a tattoo.
He had the tattoo of maybe I missed this part, but when they were doing all their like scar trading, or as I called it, foreplay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things happen here that I haven't really unpacked yet because I just watched this movie yesterday. So first of all, when Brody is like standing there in the boat cockpit, I still don't know what it's called.
Fair enough.
And he
bridge.
They're comparing scars, and Brody kind of looks, I don't know, down his pants. He has a little scar on his stomach, but he doesn't like throw it into the scar conversation.
No, he doesn't.
Okay, I'm gonna have to read the book.
He probably got.
So
I'm imagining that was an inciting moment for leaving New York City.
Yeah, maybe it's why he doesn't like to go in the ocean. I don't know.
That could be too. Yeah, they don't really talk about it in the movie. But as far as Quint saying he got a tattoo removed, I believe we're supposed to, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that the audience is supposed to assume that is where a shark bit him. So it's his USS Indianapolis, like Marine or Navy.
I'm being literal.
Tattoo, and I think he had to get it. He got it removed because it's a big ass scar.
And he could have killed that shark the first time this is not Brody. Hooper is saying, I have things that'll kill this shark, right? They could have killed this shark right away, but he wanted the shark to suffer.
Yeah. He was angry. He was angry at a shark that had nothing to do with his World War II experience.
Well, not as far as we know. I mean, one thing I did Google during this movie is that in order to be 25 feet long, Bruce would have had to have been at least 40 years old.
40 years old. Okay. But I think the difference here is that the USS Indianapolis was a Japanese front vessel, and we're on the Atlantic coast of the United States. Maybe.
It's happened, right?
Maybe he went through the Panama Canal. I don't know.
Haven't sharks traveled up rivers and stuff? I don't know.
Yes, they most certainly have, as long as the rivers are like saltwater. But it's entirely possible he spent 30 years.
Maybe he was there.
1945 to 1975. He spent 30 years swimming around the Cape of Cape Horn or whatever it is.
Yeah. Sure.
South America, and then swam all the way back up through the Atlantic Ocean just to go mess with Quint. Oh, you're not.
Well, okay.
You're not on the West Coast anymore. Okay, I'll find you on the East Coast.
And maybe. Okay, fine. Maybe this is like a good parallel for, acts of like prejudice or discrimination against groups of people, of like people feel harmed by one member of the group. And so they are going to go out of their way to like make people in the future from that group, to enact some kind of vendetta against them.
Yeah, it's well, who's seeking? Well, I guess so. Yeah, Quint is seeking revenge on
Bruce. Sharks.
But sharks writ large.
Yeah. It's any shark would do, and I think that's a really interesting. I don't know. I'm sure that we talked a little bit about before the episode about the Moby Dick connection and the parallels there, but I'm not a social psychologist. One of the things I know about social psychology is like this: people will enact these like revenge plots where it's when people perceive that they've been wronged in some way, they will go out of their way and put themselves in harm's way and others in harm's way to, make a point to that person, to make a point of like their rule breaking and their, going against the social, like, okay, so some sharks circled us in these waters and tore us apart, and it was, really traumatic. And so I'm going to find the shark and I'm just going to teach it a lesson. So sharks know to stop messing with us.
Yeah.
Right. And doing it at great personal cost, not just to himself. Right. Cause we're allowed to do spoilers, right? Cause he died.
It's 50 years.
Yeah. Okay. I just saw it. So
yeah, he gets eaten alive. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's putting the other two guys in harm's way, and he's being really like, this is Brody has two young kids. Like the wife calls at one point, and he doesn't even talk to her, and he's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
and doesn't respect the fact.
Quint says, he's busy right now. We're out. We'll be back soon, or whatever, and he just like hangs up the radio or whatever. Hangs up the radio
out for days. Yeah,
yeah,
and then destroys the radio. Like you are putting yourself at risk, and you're damaging your equipment, and because you want to do the shark your way, right? Like you want it to suffer. You want to take it down because you're acting out something that really, like, did they not have EMDR then?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No. But so one of the biases that I spotted for Quint specifically was overconfidence. And I think sort of less a-habby. We're talking like different time periods here, but less a-habby in his overconfidence, but certainly his descent into madness until his, untimely, well, maybe timely devouring of Bruce. Maybe to be fair to the shark in the film, or at least the sharks in Quint's story about surviving the sinking of the Indianapolis, that his death was delayed, right? He was supposed to die, sort of final destination. Like, he was supposed to die with his fellow men, but he didn't, right? He survived with only minor injuries, and he came back and he made shark hunting his life, and he just found a great opportunity to get revenge, and it turns out that it was just his final destination.
Yeah.
So,
it was the universe. It was the universe,
right? But playing against him was overconfidence bias, because, as you said, he wanted to do it his way. He didn't want Hooper to do it. He was making fun of Hooper and his cage. To be fair, also to Quint, making fun of Hooper's cage. Hooper's cage did not last.
No, it didn't.
Take that junkie out of yourself, below, and you'll lash it secure. You're right, you understand me?
Jesus H. Christ. When I was a boy, every little squirt wanted to be a harpooner or a sword fisherman. What do you got here? Portable shower or a monkey cage?
Anti-shark cage.
Anti-shark cage. You go inside the cage. Cage goes in the water. You go in the water. Shark's in the water. Our shark. Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so nevermore shall we see you again.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is him getting the syringe ready, and he's like, do, putting, getting it ready to shoot from the gun and everything like that. And then Bruce just comes up behind him, and it's like, how do you not have your head on a swivel?
Yeah.
In the water.
I mean, well,
I know he was getting, like, had to do step-by-step kind of thing to get the needle ready and with the poison and all of that stuff into the gun and all that jazz. But, like, you couldn't do that on the boat?
No, well, and yeah, it's like, are these people, do these people don't understand anxiety? I had the same thought, and I'm like, why wouldn't you be, like, at least looking around? And then I remember I have an 11-year-old who plays Roblox, and there could be an Earth-destroying asteroid.
Yeah.
Plummeting toward the planet. And he would not have his head on a swivel.
No,
he
that's
would
true.
Be rigidly engaged with his iPad.
Here's where I'm gonna diverge, though, as far as that analogy goes. Hooper knows he's going into the water with a very large killer animal in an untested cage, by the way, for that large of an animal. Like, tested it with, like, tiger sharks and stuff like that, and seems to be pretty good. But Bruce was breaking this wooden boat with his power. He was pulling down canisters full of air below the surface of the water. Okay, I think we see early on that Hooper doesn't have, like, the same kind of risk assessment that the rest of us would have, right? Because he's in the water looking at the other boat that was eaten, right? Like, and his head's not on a swivel then. Like, if somebody's, I think that personality trait of his is why he got in that cage in the first place. That, like, low level of risk assessment of just not really caring what's happening around you, or I don't know. And then he turns his tail and He runs. He goes and hides.
What should he have done in that situation? What would you have done?
I don't know. Probably accepted my fate of dying, like Quint.
Punched the shark in the nose.
Punched the shark in the nose. I think the Mythbusters tested that. They did a ton of Jaws myths, and now I believe they busted the myth that the tank would explode in the way that it did. It just releases air out, and so maybe it releases air out of the hole, like it doesn't explode.
So he would have very slowly exploded.
No, he would have, or it depends on how lodged. He would have been, like, pushed backward. It would have been like, whee! Could that have could any of that have killed him? Yeah, maybe if it was lodged enough, right? But I don't. But
I don't
think
know.
the
Was the canister
Mythbusters,
from the 1970s when they tested? I feel like more things from the 70s exploded.
more things from the 70s exploded. So they do the whole Chekhov's canister thing, and Hooper explains how these things are super pressurized, and if you're not careful with them, they could just like explode or whatever. And no person in their right mind would put those on a boat if they were like that, right? If they were not rated to be in that situation. But it's definitely a Chekhov's canister kind of thing. Like, if you're familiar with Chekhov's gun, the fact that the character or somebody makes note of the gun being in a certain place and it later shows itself to another character, it's going to be used in that way. The gun is going to be used, not named for Chekhov from Star Trek, but actually a writer named Chekhov.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. But it was definitely Steven Spielberg going like, hey, these canisters, they're going to be important later.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
The foreshadowing.
Good use of the foreshadowing.
Get out of that boat!
Hey, Dad! Just a little longer, please!
Martin, it's his birthday tomorrow.
I don't want him on the ocean.
He's not on the ocean. He is in a boat. He's not going to go in the water. I don't think he'll ever go in the water again after what happened yesterday.
Now, don't say that. I don't want that to happen. You know that. But I want him to read the boating regulations, the rules, before he goes out on his own.
Michael! Did you hear your father? Out of the water now! Now!
I wanted to ask you, Jordan, in your notes, you have, can we go home now? And I want to talk to you about parenting in this movie.
This was from A Scene Without Children. This was when the two guys at night almost became Bruce victims.
Yes.
And I remember in their little dinghy, and then the guy scrambled his way back up on the pier. And said,
right. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
These were just two old dudes.
Yeah, but I do want to talk to you about parenting because that's what the Can We Go Home Now reminded me of.
Yeah.
So we have a few things happening in this movie around parenting. So we've got Brody, like you said, has two young boys, and they are potentially a part of the sharks attacking. Okay. We have the woman who is Alex's mother. She loses her son. What would you do if you were in Ellen and Martin's situation with their two boys?
That's a really good question because, you feel like when you're a parent, you feel like you make all these decisions based on data, based on objectivity. And it's like really, really hard to not engage in like just over the top protective behavior. I think like I've had this conversation that's sort of similar with people a lot lately. And we, and where I live in Kansas City, the public schools don't have like a very good reputation. And I kind of think that is for very complicated reasons. And a lot of it has to do with scores. And a lot of it is tied in to like history of redlining in the city and resources. And
oh yeah. All of that.
I live on the Missouri side, and we my kids go to public school. They go to a very lovely, I say lovely, I don't know. That's like definitely coded. They go to a wonderful school, and it doesn't have a great reputation, but from my experience of it, it's like, well, the teachers are awesome. The kids are getting what they need.
Very similar in our situation for our district. District's not like the strongest district, and that's because of, population dynamics and demographics and underfunding and all that. Yeah. So very similar, but their elementary school, they had a great time. Teachers were amazing. Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, it's like, it's really hard to unpack what you mean by like a good school. And,
right.
And so we live, close to the state line with Kansas, and there's a road, it's like a mile away called State Line Road.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side are some of the quote unquote best public schools in the country.
Wow.
And it's true. I mean, I teach at a college where we have students from both sides, and, you'll there'll be somebody, from the Kansas City public schools who has never used a microscope in classes with somebody from the Johnson County, Kansas side who is, has had, it's very affluent. The schools have a lot of resources. And I have a lot of friends who have moved across the state line when they've had kids to get access to quote unquote good public schools.
Yeah.
And these are like good liberal, like, also in quotation marks, good liberal people, right? It's like, I understand that people doing that is contributing to inequities that will persist. But at the same time, it's like, what do you do when it's like your kid and you're trying to hedge all of your bets to make sure they have the best possible life you can give them? And all of that is wrapped up in like, what does it mean to have a best life? Like, all of it is very, very complicated, but it's like decisions made at the micro, are they informed by like these philosophies that we have about the macro? And like, yeah, like I kind of got this sense when I was watching Jaws of like, there are all of these competing for, like, I feel like I would have been a lot like Martin watching the ocean, getting really panicked and like, and it's hard when you have kids. Like one of the things that my spouse and I struggle with a lot is like when the kids were younger, we would take them to playgrounds and like my spouse, like he would kind of hover and like with his hands out, like don't fall. And I'm like, okay, it's 2 feet. And he'd be landing like literally on like a tire. Like this is, it's bouncy. And like, I'm pretty sure kids at this age are like 98% cartilage. And like 2% neurons. I don't know. There's got to be like 30% pee because they go through a lot of diapers. But it's really hard to silence that part of you that's like, I just want to be following my kid around all the time, just like holding my hands out, trying to catch them. Like, you really don't want to. I have this struggle right now where I want my kids to be able to go out and walk in the neighborhood. And I'm like, God, like I see the way people drive around here where they'll like look at their cell phones and like, we've had a couple cases. There was somebody who died a couple of years ago because the driver was on a cell phone. They jumped a curb and killed a pedestrian.
Oh,
I'm like,
jeez. Yeah.
But I don't want to teach my kids that they can't go for a walk.
Right.
Like I'd prefer it if they were a little aware of their surroundings.
Life is too scary outside. Don't go outside. You're now, congratulations, you're now agoraphobic.
Yes. Which is, if I'm going to pick a phobic to be.
Yeah. Not that one.
Agoraphobic is going to be mine.
You do want that to be. Yeah. Okay.
I feel like it would be fine.
I'm going to take your little nugget here and I'm going to ask you a question.
I'm going to polish
my
turd nugget.
Think that your kids now have a aversion to doing something?
Well, I don't know if this is what you're going for, but I told you about this thing that happened last week at the gas station where my kid slammed his door into another. I didn't even hear it. But my kid, all I hear is this woman like yelling the F word at my kid, and I look over and it turns out that he had swung his door open and hit her car, and she was a little unhinged. She really let him have it. She was like screaming at him.
Yeah.
She eventually, I think she knew she was unhinged. She told us to leave. So I'm like, okay, I didn't see any damage. I didn't get out of the car. And he was, I think it really rattled him. He was silent for the rest of the day. He was pretty shaken up. And we've gotten into, we spent some time talking about it. And we're like, look, this is why we tell you, look at what you're doing when you open the car door.
Mm-hmm.
So some unhinged woman at the Quick Trip doesn't. And I've noticed that when he gets in and out of the car, he's like extra cautious.
Yeah.
And I think that that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
That is a good outcome.
I think
I'm like,
that is exactly what I'm going for here. So since you shared, I'll go ahead and share too. So one of my kids had a run-in with a dog recently and is overly cautious now when somebody comes and rings the doorbell or knocks on the door, because our littler dog likes to just bark. And usually the people knocking at the door are neighbor friends that the kids have, and they want him to come outside and play because they're outside more often than my kids are outside. And so, that's why. And so she immediately jumps into action and it's like, somebody grab the dog so we can answer the door. And it's just like, just need to slow down. Okay, slow down. You don't need to be the one answering the door. because you can't control the little dog. And I think getting back to the movie, both of these experiences that you had recently and maybe a little less recently for my kid is that there's a good example of fear conditioning or avoidance behavior in the movie on the part of one of Brody's kids, Michael. So several attacks now, right, have happened. At least 3 have happened, right? Because the boys in the lagoon that should have been safe from a shark, right? Lagoons aren't that deep, but you end up these boys having to get out of the water really quickly so they don't end up getting eaten. And so now Michael doesn't want to go back in the water. And what are you going to do on an island? There's no water. I mean, there's water all around you. What are you going to do? You're so afraid now to go back in the water. That's sad. It's very sad. But that's what happens with fear conditioning and then the resultant avoidance behavior. One thing tells you shouldn't do it because you're going to die. And so you don't do it anymore.
Yeah, but also, like, my kid isn't, if the car is on fire and he needs to get out of it, like, he's still going to get out of it. He's just going to be real cautious.
Yeah, but I think
when he gets out of it.
Yeah. Obviously, the analogies here aren't completely good, but they are at least relatable.
When Michael wouldn't get back in the water, I was relieved. I'm like, good. That he needs to not get in, because there's a shark in those waters.
But what about, so we don't know the aftermath. Do you think Michael gets back in the water?
Is he in Jaws 2? I saw that there were sequels.
We do not speak of sequels here.
Okay. None?
No, specifically of Jaws sequels. They do
All
not
right.
exist.
Is it like Scrubs season 9?
And they are, exactly. And they do not exist. They will not be spoken of here. I don't care if Michael could be a character in there.
We're going to call it Nas 2.
Yeah. Nah, dog. We ain't doing that. No.
Is Roy Scheider in it?
Roy Scheider does return as Brody. Lorraine Gary does as well, and so does Murray Hamilton. And honestly, it follows a very similar plot line.
Of course it does. You do what works.
Yeah, but it was terrible. And again, Mayor Vaughn is just like, no, we got to keep it open. Michael Brody is a character in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's directed by Jeannot Schwark. I don't know how to say this guy's last name. Schwark.
Spielberg's pen name.
Right. And then Jaws 3D came out in 1983.
But like the zeitgeist, right? Like the thing with this movie was like it was right? Like this, I don't see movies like this impacting culture in a way. Like people who saw the movie were afraid of going to pools, right? Like what is a shark going to do to you there are no shark attacks in pools.
Yeah, I know.
That's how terrified it made them. And it's, maybe Michael never got in the water again, but did he have to? We don't have to get in pools. Like phobias are phobias because they interrupt with your life, right? They do something to you that prevents you from being happy. Yeah, they're on Amity Island, but he doesn't have to go in the water.
Right.
Your survival doesn't depend on you going in the water. So yeah, maybe he never gets in the water again. Fine.
I just want him to get in the water again. You know what I mean?
Maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe he doesn't, that's the difference between a phobia and just a really inconvenient hot take.
Okay. No, I hear you. I hear you.
If Michael's little brother was drowning, maybe he'd run in there and save him. But if he's like, you know what? I don't F with that anymore. Like that's fine. It's fine. Right? Like my spouse doesn't go to Denny's because he had got food poisoning from them once. And but there's no reason for us to go to Denny's. I would kind of like to go back someday, but I don't have to because he doesn't F with Denny's anymore.
Oh, that's sad. I miss Denny's.
All right, come on. Show me the tank. Show me the tank. We get in on those? Hey, what day is this?
It's Wednesday. It's Tuesday, I think.
I think the tide's with us.
Keep kicking.
I used to hate the water.
I can't imagine why.
Okay, I think what I want to do is end our discussion here with your favorite scene from the movie, and then I'll tell you mine.
God. I there's one that well, obviously, like the homoerotic foreplay where they're, talking about their scars.
Spanish.
Is,
and then also singing about Spanish girls.
Yes, like I was disappointed there was no smut.
Okay,
but that's the closest I got.
Yeah,
I think my favorite scene, and I don't exactly know why it's my favorites, and I need time to think about it, is when they're, we're on the boat and we're just getting the close-ups of at least the two guys that I remember, the close-up on Hooper and his face and his eyes darting around, and then Quint, standing on the little plank at the front of the boat.
Yeah, the little outcropping, yeah.
Maybe I'm mixing up two scenes, but I think there were just a lot of like really good close-ups watching them kind of process what was going on.
Trying to see what they could see
around
in
them.
the deep, dark ocean.
Yeah.
Stuff nightmares are made of.
I think I liked it because it just kind of, it boiled down to, this is something that we haven't really talked about yet that I did put in the notes that I'm like, what I like about movies, like, and this is what I said to my kid watched the first half of the movie with us, and he's, asking questions about the shark. And I'm like, you need to understand that in horror movies, the enemy is always other people. It's always other people. The shark is scary. The unknown is scary. But like, if it weren't for other people and people's weirdnesses, this would be like, it wouldn't have never been a horror movie. And this is why I love the zombie genre, because what you really need to worry about in zombie genres is like the scarcity mindset that other people have and how that's gonna, impact like intergroup relations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
other people are the problem. Yeah.
And I think I liked those scenes because it was like, there's no boats, there's no tourists, there are these just people like just experiencing this thing. And that is the thing to be most afraid of.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially Quint, because he's the one who breaks the radio.
Once you bring your
stuff.
I was not on his side from the second he was introduced.
Well,
I was not.
He's used his nails to scratch a chalkboard.
Yeah.
You immediately lose any kind of respect. You have earned zero respect from me introducing yourself like that. I'll get him for you.
Yeah.
My favorite. My favorite thing, this is a story that I wanted to share. I mean, the whole movie is my favorite, but this is what I wanted to share. I show this clip, this segment, every time I teach the Daily Show. So probably at least once a semester, I watch this clip. I probably watched this segment from the Daily Show a good 36 times and counting. And it's called The Summer of the Shark. And it's from 2003, I want to say, toward the end of Stephen Colbert's time as a correspondent on The Daily Show. And Jon Stewart's the host. And they set up this story by suggesting that shark attacks are a big problem and you should be wary if you go to the beach. And it's this, and the premise of the segment is the fear tactics of the media, right? So, and then they play a bunch of clips from cable news and broadcast news of people just saying sharks, right? Sharks, right? And Steven goes down to Miami and talks to a shark expert and asks him, how common are shark attacks? And he's like, well, not very common, actually. You'd probably be more likely to XYZ. And then he goes to an expert in XYZ, and they're like, well, no, probably you're probably it's more dangerous to do ABC. And then he goes and talks to an expert in ABC, and it just escalates. And I think it goes from like sharks to camel bites to bathtubs to stairs to getting struck by lightning on golf courses to ridiculous things like dying from being allergic to some fruits. And specifically the woman he's talking to. Oh, I forgot falling coconuts in there. And she's specifically alluding to pineapple and says sometimes strawberries. And they actually put that in the graphic. And it's amazing. Because it shows just exactly how the availability heuristic works. But I love the premise starts with sharks, taking it back to the movie here and how unlikely a shark attack will be. If you don't go out in deep water, you're not going to see big ass sharks. They need the space. You will see small sharks. Yeah, could they attack you? Are they going to consume you? Probably not. Are you going to have a big giant hole in your leg? Maybe. But it's not going to be life-threatening in the sense that the movie makes. But as you were saying, the movie stopped people from doing lots of things, just like 9/11 stopped people from going on planes for a little while. And I just think it's a great little thing, and it just kind of keeps the Jaws stuff going. You know what I mean? It just lets the cultural phenomenon that is Jaws just be a part of our culture, we'll say, right? And it's a very funny segment. My students don't really laugh at it anymore. It's probably because, it's more than 20 years old. It's older than them. So I don't necessarily think they get the humor, but also some people have said that they're probably not laughing because it's a part of class, and, who wants to laugh at anything in class? I don't know if it's a joke. Laugh at it. But it's great. The segment ends by Steven coming back and saying, one thing that, after all of this stuff, one thing that we should be afraid of, it's sharks. Right?
That's awesome.
A lovely full circle moment while he's sitting in studio wearing a suit made out of bubble wrap with his tie sticking out of the bubble wrap, and he's wearing a helmet. And John just makes an offhand joke by saying, what else is dangerous? Paper cuts?
Yeah.
Because he holds on to the script and he's just like, paper cuts? And Steven cracks. He cracks and he breaks and he chortles, and it's amazing. It's one of my favorite interactions of the two of them, and it's a great little bit of connection between the media, which is a force in Jaws, sort of a background force. Like Mayor Vaughn's like, I don't want this to cause any havoc. And then just like the fear that lives within us all, prompting or not prompting us to do anything or to do something, I suppose, and be a part of that. I like it.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a nice full circle moment.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if tourism was hurt by Jaws.
Hard to say because, like I said, Jaws 2 is a Jaws 2.
I feel like we're speaking of Jaws 2 a lot for people who are not speaking of Jaws 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Jaws 2. It was a thing, I suppose. I don't want to talk about Jaws 2. You're right.
Okay.
Screw Jaws 2.
We'll stop it. It's a nice, but it is kind of interesting question. Like, did it affect culture so much that it actually did hurt tourism? Like, was the whole point like anti-capitalism?
That's a good point. So you're saying not within the movie, but outside of the movie, culturally, did it stop people from going?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, critical. I don't know. I wonder if that's part of the legacy of it. Have you been to Universal Studios Hollywood?
No.
So
is there a Jaws ride?
So it used to be part of the studio tour ride, which is, you would go through the back lot of Universal Studios because the theme park was right next to the actual backlot where they filmed stuff. So you would go through various parts. You drive through the Hill Valley Town Center from Back to the Future. You go through a King Kong thing where it's breaking up. And then you go through this part where you go over this bridge and the bridge starts to sink and you have this shark creature coming at you, and
I've seen
as
pictures.
It gets to you, it splashes up, and you get a little wet. It wasn't too much, but
You get a little eaten.
yeah, and then he would go back to where it was as you drive off. And it's a little thing. They got rid of that a long time ago, though, because they replaced it with, stuff that I guess was more current, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it definitely has a cultural touch point here.
Yeah, way more than I think any film or movie has done. Like I can't think of a summer blockbuster that has affected culture more, which I guess it was like a point of pride that I had never seen it. I'm like, I've never seen Jaws. Look at me, I'm cool.
I'm glad you added it to your list, though, because it is certainly a one to have on the list.
This movie was a time capsule. Like my 9-year-old watching this with me was like, those people smoke a lot.
Yeah.
Look at them smoking inside. And like, he's making comments about the cars and their clothing. And it was a time capsule.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank Dr. Jordan Wagge for joining me to discuss Jaws. Before we say adieu, farewell, Jordan, is there anything that you would like to plug? Let folks know where they can find out more about your work?
I'm trying to inhabit a space in 2025 that is no plugging. It's a no plugging zone.
No plugging zone. Okay, that's fair.
It's fairly cool, like having the name I have, because if you Google me, you will only find things relevant to me. There's like no other Jordan Wagge.
Nice.
So I do have a website at jordanwagge.com that is sometimes updated. I like to, I'm in the group chat. I'm always sending messages in the group chat. So bring me into your group chat.
Okay.
I'll liven it up for you.
Yeah.
Change
You might
the
want to
emoji.
send her an email first, though.
No, just
add you.
Just add me.
Add you to the group chat.
I will add me to the group chat with your family, and I will make your parents more proud of you.
Oh, that's a
comparison.
plug if I ever heard one.
They'll be like, at least my kid didn't turn out this way.
That's great. That's
Something
a great
is
plug.
broken in her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I take Venmo at Joe Rowags.
I will not
That's
be
where you can
linking
find
that
me.
in the show notes.
That's where you can find me.
Exactly. That's the plug I want to give.
That's the plug.
All right. Thank you again for joining me, Jordan.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Sorry, that was really rude. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this episode. Until the next one, thanks for listening.